Stronger Communities Select Committee. Let me just start on here. I can't see to read it. Right, first of all, I would like to remind everyone present this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet or filmed and will be capable of repeated viewing or for another use such third parties. Therefore, by entering the council chamber and using the seating area, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images, sound recordings for webcasting and or training purposes. Right, apologies for absence.
We have apologies from Councillor Hadley.
Thank you. Any substitute members?
We have Councillor Helen Kane for Councillor Hadley.
Okay, thank you. Right, item 4, declarations of interest, anybody? Right, we go straight on to item 5, which is the Terms of Reference Work Programme, pages 3 to 8. And I think I've got one item now. Right, has everyone looked at that? Was there anything anyone wanted to ask about? Otherwise, we go on to 19, the Resident Involvement Strategy. That, yeah. That's just for you to note that that's going to be looked into more and that will be coming back. Is that okay with everybody?
It's not been included on this agenda. So it will be coming back in the next municipal year.
Right, yeah, I better say it right. It will be coming back in the next municipal year. So, everyone all right with that, right?
No, sorry, Chairman, I'm a bit confused. What's being noted and what's coming back?
It's not really on tonight. It's the Resident Involvement Strategy. It's been moved further for more consultation.
Oh, okay.
The introduction and approval. Is that all right? It's item 19 on page 7.
Oh, I'm with you now, Chairman. Yes, you're talking about the work programme and it's item 19, yep.
Yeah, all right. Now we go on to item 6, the Customer Service Strategy, which I'll pass you over to Susan Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. Evening, everyone. So, start off with an update regarding the waste and recycling situation. So the positive news is that it's improved. Less phone calls, collections are being completed. We're still getting daily spreadsheets, and I'm pleased to say that each day lately it's saying that there's nothing outstanding, so the situation has calmed down and it's really improved. In terms of complaints, as you will see, we had quite a record number of formal complaints, which was to be expected, but we're now on the upward turn, so it's positive news there regarding the waste. In terms of our strategy for this year, so we need to continue to improve our online services and make it easier for our residents to serve themselves so that they don't have to call us. Obviously, by doing that, we're going to free up the phone lines for those customers who are less digitally enabled. So what I've done is outlined a number of projects which we intend working on. Many of these, because they require IT resourcing, we're awaiting a decision regarding budget, but hopefully we're going to get the go-ahead very soon. The first one, item 4, the data capture process. So members will recall that our challenge has always been that if the contact centre can't resolve the query, and I'm pleased to say that currently on average they're resolving around 69% of queries coming into the contact centre, which means that they don't need to put calls through to back office teams. If they can't, what they have been doing is transferring to a voicemail if an officer is unavailable. What that means is we had no visibility or transparency on what happens to the call once it's transferred. So what we're doing is launching a data capture process. Calls will no longer be put through to voicemail. If an officer isn't available, the agent will raise a contact request, and it's been agreed that all service areas have committed to 1 working day to get back to the customer. Just an acknowledgement. It's not a case of they're necessarily going to resolve the query within 1 working day, but that's the agreed timescale. Managers will have access to real-time data via a Power BI dashboard, and leadership will be receiving key messages. So the contact requests will go through to a service area. After a working day, if that hasn't been actioned and responded to, an automatic email is sent through to the store manager. It's because we were talking about days in Tesco's, apologies. Not the store manager, the team manager will receive an escalation email. So a couple of weeks ago, so this process was fully tested before we went live. Unfortunately, we've experienced some teething issues. So we were hoping to go live a couple of weeks ago. It's currently on hold. The team are ironing out those issues. It was issues with the Granicus forms. So in testing, everything worked perfectly well. Once we went live, we then experienced issues with officers being able to access the link. So it's a case of watch this space, because we really hope to get this up and running very soon. It's going to give us real transparency. In the 2 days that it was live, the customer service centre, the morale was just sky high, because what they were saying is they felt they were able to provide a much better service to our residents. Instead of just putting a call through to a voicemail, they could assure the customer, they was giving the customer a reference number, and basically when the call would be resolved by back office, the response is coming back through to the contact centre. So what they'll be able to do is learn from that, update their scripts and keep improving the first point resolution rate. So once that does get up and running, it's going to be a tremendous step forwards. In terms of our website, we really do hope that we can move forwards with this year. As I said, that's awaiting approval in terms of funding for resourcing, but that's something we hope to crack on with. You'll be aware that we've been closing following the closure of the Debden Cash Office, the kiosks have been removed at Waltham Abbey. All customers who had been using the kiosk to pay their bills have been written to and received the all-pay cards in the same way as Debden residents. And the kiosks here at Epping are coming out at the end of March. So again, we've communicated to residents. There's also messages on the kiosk, so when the customer uses the kiosk, they'll get the message. And what we're finding is that the usage is actually dropping, and more customers are moving to direct debit, which again is good news. So we are going to be migrating to a cloud-based solution for our payment solution. Go live date for that will be August this year, and revenue savings are estimated at 85,000 over the 5-year period. In terms of members, so those of you who have attended the last few members' coffee mornings will know that we are looking to launch a members portal. So we want to make it as easy as possible for you to access all of the information you need in the one place via a dashboard. We've got a list of, so from the last coffee morning, it was great because we got lots of feedback from members on what they liked and what they didn't like, and it's helped us to shape the portal. We've also got a list of members who are keen to support with testing. Timescales for this project, as I said, are awaiting a prioritisation exercise, so as soon as we get the go-ahead, we'll be in touch with you to arrange testing and further engagement. Just talking about the members' coffee mornings, I've been pleased to see they've been really well attended. And if there's anything in particular that you'd like to see on the agenda for those coffee mornings, please do drop Lewis Walton an email and let him know. The next coffee morning will be after members' training in July, just for information. In terms of the community hub, we've seen an increase with footfall, highest volumes recorded for January this year, which was 284 visits. And we've also welcomed 3 new partners, which was Essex Police, so residents are able to come in and report crime. I've got a bit more information actually for you on that, so I was keen to know. So, yeah, they can come in and report a crime, get some advice regarding crime prevention, crime news, appeals and statistics. So they're now in attendance in the hub. There's Epping Community Hub. There's a link on our website actually which gives you a full breakdown of all the partners attending and which days. We've also welcomed Essex Family Support Services, offering mentoring support to families with children and young people aged 8 to 19, and Essex Wellbeing Services, giving advice on stopping smoking, diet and exercise. Moving down to item 9, to enhance the audio quality in the chambers here, corporate communications, facilities and IT have been working to develop some affordable enhancements. So we've got a new Wi-Fi based hearing assistance system which is due to be installed shortly. New digital signal processor which has already been installed to improve the audio quality. And larger TV monitors are also being installed to assist with PowerPoint displays. In terms of webcasting, Microsoft Teams will be replacing Zoom for hybrid webcasting meetings later this year. I think that's it. Further costs. Yeah, so from July, webcasting costs will be reduced by approximately 50%, which again is great news to hear. Does anybody have any questions?
Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. A few points, and then I think I do have a couple of questions as well. Depends how I divide them up. There might be 3 questions. Just my first point, and I'm sure it will be echoed by other members, as it's on the report, item 1, waste and recycling. I have to say that there's been a massive improvement and return to normal. I'm sure, like other members, I was absolutely inundated the 6 weeks before Christmas, and I think a period of time after Christmas it all kind of tends to merge, doesn't it? But there was a period of 6 or 8 weeks where you couldn't go out of the door without being bombarded. And again, like other members, I found I had to do a ward survey every Saturday, because we're done on a Friday. Every Saturday I had to drive round and see what roads were done and what roads weren't done, and report them to, or make sure they had been reported to the officer. I have to say, as far as I'm aware, for the last 6 or 8 weeks, the services, certainly in the ward I represent, back to absolutely normal. And I'm sure it's been done in other places, Chairman, but I would just like to use this report as a formal opportunity to again minute our thanks to the officers who were involved in this. And when I say officers, I mean the frontline staff that were taking the complaints on the call centre, and then the actual officers who were dealing with the contract and have resolved the issues around, or largely resolved the issues around the contract. So I would have thought there'd be quite common agreement that we could minute that as a communities select committee.
Thank you.
The rest, I think, really do become questions. On 8, the community hub, I just wanted an update about where we are in terms of extending that to other parts of the district. Yes, I am on record from the very beginning, and I do understand the history about why it started here, but I'm still of the belief that it's not in the right place. I mean, geographically, yes, it is the centre of the district, but for a whole number of reasons which I won't explore again today, I don't think our first community hub is actually in the right location within the district. So I did just want to briefly explore again what are the plans to extend that model to our more populated parts of the district. Do you want me to do all my questions in one, or get that one answered first?
No, that'd be fine, as long as you don't take too long.
No, but we are here to ask questions, aren't we?
I know.
Scrutinise. Yeah. I mean, I want to get home and watch West Ham win again, and I don't think they're on the telly. Right, and then webcasting update. This does just concern me a little bit, because it's not very clear how we're suddenly going to save 50% of the contract. My reading of this means that the only committees that are going to be webcast live are the ones that are listed here: Full Council, Cabinet, ONS, DMMC and Planning Subcommittees. If that's right, because I think that paragraph is open to interpretation and I might have misinterpreted, if that's right, I would not be happy that the select committees weren't going to be webcast, because that's where we do the detailed, nitty-gritty scrutiny. ONS on the whole is fairly light touch. It can be nitty-gritty. I mean, the Qualis was fairly nitty-gritty, but on the whole, because it's the umbrella committee, the detailed work of scrutiny in this council, quite rightly, is done by the select committees, and I wouldn't be very happy if this report is telling us that that's not going to be live streamed. So have I got that right? And if I have got that right, how do we say that we're not happy with that? Because I certainly wouldn't be happy if the select committees weren't going to be webcast. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Susan, do you want to come back on that?
Thanks, Councillor Murray. So to your first point regarding the hub and where next, so that's something we need to look at this year. So my contact centre team manager, Tracy Scott, runs the hub, and it's certainly something that we'll be looking at in conjunction with Jen's team in terms of where next. You'll note that the majority of the hub users we're getting in are from Epping, Loughton, Wolf Malby, North Weald and Buckhurst Hill, but that's something we need to look at. There's no decision at the moment in terms of where we go next. For your second point regarding webcasting, and clarity as to whether these select committee meetings are to be recorded, I'll take an action to speak to Tom Khan because I'm not completely clear, so I'll take that as a next step.
Right, if Jen would like to just say something first.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to add actually to Sue's answer around the community hubs. So there's quite a lot of activity going on at the moment in the community and wellbeing team with Jill Wallace around supporting hubs that are run by community groups and other voluntary groups all over the district, actually in various different places. And one of the sort of latest developments actually around that is the warm places that we supported over the course of the winter months. Some of those have really taken off and are really valued by residents across the district. And so we are supporting those groups at the moment to kind of transition from warm places to social spaces. And we will be supporting that and also putting some services in there as and when they're needed. So what I will do actually, Councillor Murray, is I will ask Jill Wallace to give a bit of a briefing at where we are with supporting all of those community hubs and the varying different ones that there are across the district, because that picture has moved on quite significantly actually, so I think that would be useful to share at this point. Yes, absolutely, will do. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, no, answer, Gary. That's fine. Sorry, Gary.
Councillor Murray, your question about webcasting, the committees that are listed in your report are the ones that will be webcast live. All other committees will be recorded and uploaded to the Council's YouTube channel after the meeting.
Oh, so communities and safer place, even though they're like ONS things, they're not going to be webcast. Okay, right.
They won't be streamed live to the Council's website. They'll be recorded and then uploaded to the Council's YouTube channel about 15 minutes after the meeting finishes, so members of the public will be able to watch them shortly after the meeting finishes.
Right, okay. Councillor Sam Kane.
Thank you, but Gary has just given exactly the answer I was about to give.
Oh. Oh, Wynne Marshall's on the committee. Wynne Marshall first, because he's been waiting. Wynne?
Yeah, it's just about the community hub. I know one was started at the community centre on Oakwood Hill Estate. Is that still running? Because I haven't heard any more about it. I went to the first meeting. Yeah, there was a hub started at the community centre on Oakwood Hill Estate. I went to the first one when it started up after the Debden office closed down. But I don't know if that is still running. Is that still going?
Which estate?
Awkward Hill.
Pam.
Susan, Pam would answer this if that's okay.
Thank you, Chairman. We ran the hub at Oak Hill for a while, but one of the problems is that when we had someone approach us who was homeless and was also out of prison on licence, there is nowhere in that building to do a confidential interview, so we weren't able to really protect the confidence of that person. And obviously there were staff concerns about their safety, and there's not a room which people can go into, which is like the ones here, which are safe, and the Limes, where there is a safe office spaces. So we're talking to ward councillors about next steps. We looked at perhaps doing Oak Hill Depot because they're not too far away, but that also doesn't have a safe interview room. And the problem there also is there's no one working full-time on the reception desk. So the idea of someone being able to triage and see if there's, could be a problem or with the individual who's coming forward, they haven't got anyone who's on duty all the time. So we're reviewing what we're going to do is basically, it's a long way round of saying that, sorry.
All right, thank you. Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, my question is to Susan. It's about, I had a complaint from somebody who phoned the council, and what irritated them was all the pre-recorded messages that I had to listen to before they could actually ask the question they wanted to ask, to actually get a chance to speak to somebody. Now, that person spoke to me probably 3 weeks ago, something like that, so I don't know if anything's changed in the meantime, because I had intended to test it out for myself to see what would happen, but I haven't done that. I haven't had a chance to do it, but yeah, I just wondered if some of those pre-recorded messages are actually really valid to have them. I think one is about data protection, the other one was about waste collections, which may be out of date now, it's perhaps been removed, but I think ideally people want to speak to somebody as soon as possible.
Thanks, Councillor Wixley. So, as a piece of work we've been doing actually, which is to ask all teams to look at their IVR messages, which is basically their telephone customer journey. So I'll take it away in terms of the contact centre, because we listen to those messages all the time and to make sure they're up to date. And for example, with the waste situation, to make sure customers had that message. We recently ran a wider leadership event, so we had all team managers there. And our objective was to address the challenge of improving customer communication. So myself and Rob Pavin were running that session. And a number of things we did on the agenda. One of them was that I provided all team managers with a setting standards customer service health check and got them to look at every communication channel. And one of them, obviously telephone, was to look at their IVR information. So we provided them with that because, within teams, people leave, people move around. We wanted them to physically put themselves in the customer's shoes, dial the number, look at the options they came through on. One of Jen's team managers, Ellie Green, who's one of our rehousing team managers, she'd actually done a fantastic job of looking at her customer journey, moving the options around, so thinking about the most frequent calls that we get and putting that as option 1. So we're literally getting them to get to that level of granular detail and review those journeys. In terms of the health checks, we got them to rank themselves red, amber, green in terms of where they have particular challenges around communication. So it's quite a good session, but what you've just described is exactly what we've got all of the team managers doing at the moment. Okay, but in terms of the contact centre message, I'll take an action to check nothing's changed. It's always good with these that we can find out exactly which option they were calling so that we can listen. But as far as I'm aware, nothing's changed.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. My question follows up the one from Councillor Murray. Some of that has been answered now, but I wonder if Mr Khan could explain how does the proposal to put the meetings out on YouTube differ from what happens now, from the point of view of the resident who wants to watch? Because I know a lot of them appreciate those alerts they get that tell them that a meeting is coming up, and we have some quite regular viewers. So I'm just wondering how they will find, finding the meeting under the new system.
Gary, do you want to answer that? Or who would like to answer it?
Yeah, I mean, part of the increased use of the YouTube channel is because in an effort to reduce the cost of the contract, the archive library is going to be reduced from its current 2 years to 6 months. So that's why there'll be increased use of the YouTube library made. That's what I understand from discussions in Tom. We're not sure here and now whether that's been communicated to residents. I think Sue's taken an action back to make sure that's done.
Okay, right, thank you. Okay, Jenny?
Chairman, Councillor Murray also asked where the decisions were being made on this. We didn't get an answer to that.
The decision, can you just clarify, there isn't a decision about recording and putting on YouTube and webcasting live that she's asking?
Janet, is it because some of them aren't going to be webcast live and just put onto YouTube? Is that exactly what you're asking? Because we've got the list of what is going to be live, and then these others will be sort of 15 minutes later on YouTube.
Yes, I understand that. Councillor Murray asked where the decision was being made about this. This has come to us as scrutiny. We're scrutinising it. What happens next? We're presuming it's going to Cabinet. Is it the decision being made at Cabinet?
Well, one moment, Janet. Councillor Kane.
I think it would help to make this clear. This is a result of the work that was done on the budget. In producing the budget, we necessarily had to find savings and economies. This is one of those savings and economies that we made to reduce down the cost of webcasting. We've done that by changing the hosting arrangements so that we're not keeping everything on its current position but putting it across onto YouTube. We've done that by reducing the amount of officer time taken to do the webcasting. These are all decisions that are made during the budgetary process by Cabinet and approved by Council, and I'm just a bit curious as to where we are. I think Mr Murray's about to explain.
Thank you.
Oh, Councillor Murray.
I'm very conscious that there might be other people, but I hadn't lost the point that Councillor Whitehouse brought up, but I wanted to wait until other people have had a chance. Is it my turn again?
You may, and then
right.
it's Councillor.
Well, I was going to bring this up on the one of the supplementary items. To my way of thinking, it's quite clear where we are. We've agreed a budget, which I didn't vote for a number of reasons, and within that budget, there are a number of implications that some members of Cabinet, was members of Cabinet, but some members of Council were aware of. Within the space of 2 weeks, and this is the second week now because we had the Constitution Working Group last week, we have now been made aware of what some of the implications were. But I have to say, and I've asked the question, and therefore I would imagine the answer on this one is the same. I've asked the question of Mr Small, where was it made explicit that select committees were going to be cut, and it wasn't. And now we've got a second example tonight where some members in agreeing the budget knew that it would result in this. And I'm not necessarily saying this is something I'm particularly alarmed about, but I suppose it's the procedure I'm alarmed about, because the question it asks is, what else do some senior members of Council know about that is implicit within the budget, but us lesser mortals aren't aware of? You know, we've had one last week, and we only agreed the budget 2 weeks ago. We've had one last week, and that agenda might even have been prepared before the budget. I don't know the timelines, but it couldn't have been prepared much later, only a few days afterwards. And we get, oh, it was implicit within the budget. Well, we didn't know it was. Now we've got something tonight, oh, it's implicit within the budget. It does make you think what else is going to be coming down the line that other members of Cabinet know was implicit in the budget, but we didn't. So that's where I'm coming from on this, and I don't think I'm far wrong.
Right, thank you. Councillor Whitbread.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And I'm afraid it was not necessarily in detail in the budget, but the budget is there for scrutiny to look at, and went through a whole scrutiny process. The questions could have been asked. We had to find substantial savings during that budget process. Some of them were very difficult, and they went through the select panels and the scrutiny panels as it's normal with a budget process if the right questions weren't asked. But we were very clear on numerous occasions there were changes coming, and particularly I can remember at a number of Cabinet meetings where items on the budget were discussed. So I don't take Councillor Murray's point of view at all. And in fact, it's a budget process. It's down to members to ask the questions as well as us about how those savings have been achieved. And in fact, if you think back to the budget debate, there were a number of items picked up, particularly around grants and such as well. But this has been a tough budget round, and life won't get any easier in the years ahead.
Thank you. Councillor Newark.
Thank you very much, Chairman. My question is around customer experiences, and just want to find out, maybe I'm getting it wrong. I'm mindful that some responsibilities is moving to Qualis, like ground maintenance. Will your team still be dealing with complaints relating to GAN? So how would that work between yourselves and Qualis, because Qualis is a separate entity?
We work very closely with Qualis already. Some of the team take the complaints for Qualis. So if anybody wishes to make a complaint regarding housing repairs, for example, the complaints raised with my team and dealt with in the same way as any other complaints. It's obviously assigned to Qualis, so we work with the customer experience manager in Qualis very closely, and the complaints managed in the same way as any other department.
Right, thank you. Right, well, we've dealt with that. No more quick. Right, we're just going to go on to part of the supplementary, the housing revenue account. So if Pam would like to, I'm looking at the wrong person, I get Pam and Paul are muddled up every time. Would like to just run through that for us, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. And it's a short report because we need to carry out our stock condition survey. When it was decided to bring back a sort of update on the housing revenue account, there was also planned to be a stock condition survey. That started just before Christmas and is running until the end of April. So I've only done a short report because we haven't got all the details of that. When we have all the details of that, we will do a full update, similar to the one that the committee had back in January 2022, which was a very detailed report, lots of graphs, lots of tables that explained exactly where we are. I also wanted to bring to the Scrutiny Committee's attention that we were commissioning an asset management strategy, and that is a document that will use all that information from the stock condition survey and the mathematics that we already have, the financial models we have in the Housing Revenue Account Business Plan, pull them together and we'll decide our priorities. And it might be something that this committee would like to look at in more detail when that is completed. And one of the things I have also highlighted in this report is the need, I've included the budget figures, by the way, but I've also pointed out about stress testing, that it will be very important when we have completed that strategy. As part of it, it will need to be stress tested, because we have had more pressures on housing than probably for a long time. We did raise rents, but they don't actually meet construction levels of inflation, and materials and labour have been difficult. So that's why it's not a full update as you got back in January 22, but you will get a fuller report probably in the autumn when we've finished those other two pieces of work. But it would be interesting to know if you'd like to see the asset management strategy back for this scrutiny committee in the new municipal year.
Right, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Amos, then Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, the stock condition survey, obviously a sensible thing to do. You want to know what costs you're likely to have to meet in years in future. But I couldn't understand the explanation as to why only half the properties are being surveyed. And I wondered whether that would not really give us a proper picture if only half was surveyed.
Right, Pam?
We think it does give us a good picture. It's partly about getting on with it and getting enough information so we can actually start modelling what that's telling us. Most authorities wouldn't do all of it, certainly wouldn't do it all at once, but what our plan is to do this 50%, which will be finished at the end of April, and then we will programme a number that we do every year after that to make sure that we get to the 100% and then we maintain the 100%. And what I'd like to do, we're currently using a company called Ridge who are doing our 50%. And we think going forward, we'd like to use a mixture of them and our own surveyors. So our own surveyors are kind of used to and understanding the stock in the same way as an external provider would be.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murray?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. My questions were around paragraph 3, stock condition survey, and Councillor Amos's question has given me another question based on that. I'm happy with the initial 50% because that is normal practice. But as the officer has just told us, the aim is after that, over a number of years, to get to 100%. Could I ask, are we talking about 5 years of the remaining, 10% for 5 years? What time scale to get to the 100%? And then I have another question after that.
We're looking at that at the moment. We've come a bit under, but we've actually come under budget with our relationship with Ridge so far. So we just want to work out the balance between Ridge doing more and our surveyors doing more. And I'm working with the asset managers to come up with that. So we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Thank you. And then I've just got a couple of other questions on this, and one is more to do with my understanding. So if I was to add up all those numbers, which I haven't got my calculator, I think there's 4 sets of numbers, 456, 1449, 1761. The way the report's written, that's more or less 50% of our housing stock, is it? And then my other question is, what's the definition of a block? Does that include the ones that dominate the Debden estate, for example, where you're talking about blocks of 8 masonettes? Does that count as a block? So do those 3 numbers add up to 50%, give or take? And what's the definition of a block?
They don't add up to 50%. They would be more than 50%. So it's the houses and the flats. If you add them together, they're 50%. The blocks, as you say, are those where there's a communal entrance and there are flats off those blocks. So we particularly wanted to understand the state of those communal entrances, the areas, etc., etc. So that's why the blocks are all being done, and then we're doing half of the houses and half of the rest of the stock.
Right, thank you. Thank you. Right, we've dealt with that. Councillor Wixley.
Thank you, Chairman. I did have a question to ask. Yeah, slightly different question. The HRA business plan, does the old Broadway office come as part of that plan? Because we were told at a previous meeting some time ago that the office would be empty, and one of the benefits would be that it could be rented out, and it was estimated that it would be a rental income of £21,000 a year. I just wonder if there's any progress on that, because I think it would be useful perhaps to have a report on that, because although we might get the rental income of £21,000 a year, quite a lot of money was spent refurbishing that office probably 2 years ago, 18 months, 2 years ago. So I would be interested to know what the payback time is on that.
Okay, thank you. Pam, is that you again?
Yes. Well, actually, the strategic director and I were there last week, and the office hasn't been rented out yet. And when I was there a while ago, there were, I'm afraid, some other works to make it up to scratch for letting. So I'll have to come back to you, and having talked to the commercial, our commercial colleagues, just to see how it certainly hadn't been let when we were there last week, but how close they are to getting an interested party.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Pam, for this report. I'm pleased to see that the stock condition survey is underway, and it's slightly a shame that we're obviously receiving this and it's not yet completed. But my point was just on your last question when you said about would you like the asset management strategy to come back to this committee, and I think yes, personally I think that it's necessary. I think it's necessary to review that asset management strategy, particularly in line with this stock condition survey. So from my perspective, I would like to see that, please. Thank you.
Right, okay. We're now going to go on to the main part of our meeting. Sorry.
Can you just confirm the committee's happy with that?
Is everybody happy with all our questions and answers now? About the asset management strategy coming back, which, yeah, thank you very much about that. Right then, we'll go on now to, I'd say, our main item, when I'll pass you over to Gary Woodhall for him to outline everything, and then we'll have some questions.
Thank you, Chairman. And attached to the supplementary agenda is the report on the scrutiny restructure that went to Constitution Working Group on Thursday. As part of the budget setting process, senior officers and members of the Cabinet have considered a number of proposals with the aim of improving democracy within the Council, which would also in the process generate savings to alleviate the Council's financial position. This particular proposal was looking to make scrutiny more effective and efficient, as it had been accepted that there was a degree of overlap in the work programmes between the main Overview and Scrutiny Committee and the Stronger Council Select Committee. This had led to some confusion, and it was felt that an amalgamation of the main Overview and Scrutiny Committee with Stronger Council would resolve this. The Constitution Working Group considered two options to achieve this, and they have decided to recommend to Council that Stronger Council in effect be abolished and its work programme assimilated by the main Overview and Scrutiny Committee. In discussions, the Constitution Working Group will be making further recommendations regarding the future of scrutiny. They will be recommending that the appointments for all three scrutiny committees now be made by the annual council at the start of the year, rather than have a separate Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting just to appoint the select committees. The chairman of all three scrutiny committees they will be recommending should be from minority groups within the council. They strangely didn't, well I say strangely, it seemed they didn't like the title Select Committee, so they will be recommending that Stronger Communities and Stronger Place Select Committees will be renamed the Communities Select Committee and the Place Scrutiny Committee and the Place Scrutiny Committee, but of course Council could decide differently. Both committees, though, will remain strongly aligned to the corresponding Stronger Communities and Stronger Place key themes within the Council's corporate plan, and they also felt that there should be mandatory training for all scrutiny chairmen, and this will be progressed by officers. CWG received a request to allow this report to come before a scrutiny committee prior to it being considered by Council on the 4th of April, and hence it is here tonight. I think this may be the only scrutiny committee available before the 4th of April. The report to Council from the Constitution Working Group has now been written, but I have left a space to report the views of the Select Committee before it is published on the Council agenda later this week. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Murray.
There's a number of different threads to this. I'm not on the Constitution Working Group, but as soon as I saw this item on the agenda, I attended along with a number of other people. I think Councillor Brooks, for example, and I think Councillor Kane, though she might even be a member, I can't remember. But we realised it was important to attend the meeting. It was a Teams meeting. It wasn't a physical meeting. So I am party to the discussion, and I don't think I was the only one, but I was very insistent that I felt it should go to a scrutiny committee rather than just straight to full council. So I'm really glad that it's here tonight. I think there's 3 other points I will make. The actual recommendations they want to put, I support, but I'll listen to other people's opinion. But given that it's already been decided within the budget that something has to happen, it was made very clear the status quo was not an option because the money isn't there. I think it's the right option. I will make my point again, and I know the Leader of Council has responded on the earlier item. This was the first example of a fairly significant change to the way this council works that was implied within the budget but wasn't fully shared with other members. And though I take the point that we are here to scrutinise the budget, and we had opportunities to scrutinise the budget, I would still strongly argue that if individual portfolio holders knew what the implications were of their budget cuts, there is an onus on them to make that really explicit to other members. Because otherwise, you don't really know what to scrutinise. You know, it's the unknowns. How can you ask questions about unknowns? So I strongly would say to the Leader of Council that actually I feel that portfolio holders had an obligation that if they had agreed something within the budget, and I understand it was a difficult budget round, and they knew that it was going to impact in very precise ways, there was an onus to make that really explicit to other members, and that clearly hasn't been done. So if there are other things sitting in the pipeline, I would encourage, rather than that coming drip by drip, agenda on agenda, that we actually have a list of things that have already been kind of agreed by portfolio holders that are going to happen in the future. I don't think that's unreasonable. It could be put on the bulletin. And the final point I will make, and I'm not going to go into the pros and cons, but I thought it was a really interesting recommendation about the chairmanship of these of this scrutiny. And to be honest, it would be something I would welcome. But I have to just pose the question. I'm not going to hold my breath because I'm not sure it's going to survive a group meeting. And I think you know which group meeting I'm talking about, Chairman.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back on your earlier point, Councillor Murray. The recommendation in the Constitution Working Paper are not a decision that was taken as part of the budget. It is a separate decision that will go to Council on the 4th of April, so it is a Council decision rather than a budget decision.
I understand that, but we were clearly told, and I think it was written in the paper, it may even be here, that it was implicit within the budget and the status quo was not an option. But I fully accept that the actual decision is going to be made at full council, but it's being driven partly, not entirely, by the budget. You know, if the Constitution Committee, we really wanted to say, no, we want the status quo, it's been made clear that there's no budgetary provision or staffing to allow the status quo to take place. But I do understand the point, the decision will be made by full council, yeah.
Councillor Helen Kane.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for letting me speak. What I would like to say is that from the moment we actually decided to look at how our council works, we have the 3 select committees, or scrutiny committees, if you like, and they're looking into each individual item. Now, the stronger council, the place and the communities are looking at different things. But the one that actually was struggling very, very much to find something to to have and discuss and scrutinize is one of the select committees. So I'm not surprised that the Constitution has actually come to this kind of decision, giving us a couple of options. Now, Chairman, through you, what I would like to see is I would like to see a proper scrutiny to be done in the council, for the council, because a council is very strong when it's got a very strong scrutiny panel. Now, whichever option we're going for, I think that this is the main thing, is the quality. Quality of scrutiny is very, very important, not the quantity, not how many select committees you've got or scrutiny committees, but it's the quality you actually, and the way you do the scrutiny. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Oh, now Councillor Sam Kane.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just to pick up on a couple of points so far. First of all, these changes are not about changing the degree of scrutiny. Scrutiny is an invaluable part of the democratic process, and it is essential. So we are not reducing the quality of scrutiny. Secondly, in terms of what Councillor Murray has been saying about openness, I've always tried to present to Council that the budget constraints have meant we must change our ways of working. Now, I haven't gone into detail all the way through, and I appreciate it's the detail that you feel you're missing. But knowing the detail ahead of today, whether it was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, wouldn't change the fact that the decision has been made on financial grounds, and as I mentioned at the Constitution Group, our emphasis has been on where we're making economies and savings. It is by changing our ways of working, not impacting on resident services. So that's where our focus has been.
Right. Councillor Whitbread.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I won't go over the budget again. I'd take on board what Councillor Helen Kane has said. I think there were really good points about the quality of scrutiny, and I think we've seen that across the local authorities who've been in trouble in recent times. And I think it is right. It's probably a little bit of back to the future when we used to have 3 scrutiny committees at the very beginning. 1, 2 and 3. One for community, one for financial, and one for the other stuff. And I very much see the main resource-based committee as one in the new world that the largest opposition group should chair. I think that's an important step forward, and I think it's actually more important today with the current financial climate than ever before, if I'm honest. And I think that's a sensible step to take, and I would be recommending that to members personally. I agree with what Councillor Kane said on the budget requirements. We set a budget according to what the council can afford to spend, and of course that means that some things will be reshaped in light of it. But actually, to get to good governance and good scrutiny, I think the changes that are set out in this report are fundamental. And I think members need to be aware of that. And funny enough, I was having a really good conversation earlier on with Councillor Balcombe about the quality of scrutiny training as being a fundamental piece of work. I see scrutiny first, really good scrutiny, when I go to the county council on a regular basis, and sometimes I'll sit there for 2 hours being grilled, and that's a good thing. It's healthy, and I think I'm hoping that at some point in the future, as a district council, that's where we will get to as well, where actually, Councillor Murray, you may get what you want with a budget that actually you'll sit there and you'll scrutinise in detail. I think I did 3 hours on budget scrutiny for the county council budget, and I think that's healthy. I think that's healthy. So I hope that where we get to with this is actually a really good scrutiny system that really holds everybody to account properly.
Thank you. Well, I must admit, we do have to be sensible. I haven't got anything. Oh, she's got it. Oh, right. Oh, Councillor Janet Whitehouse. It's
No,
right.
it's not a hand.
Oh. I thought I hadn't got a yellow hand. Right. I know on some of these committees that there were some things overlapping, and I think, yes, it does make sense maybe cutting back. This committee normally has quite a lot, and I don't want them sitting doing nothing if I've got to be busy, so I mean, we've got to be fair. I don't know if anyone has anything else they want to discuss about it, but it will be coming to council that everybody will be able to make a decision. So,
Do we need to come to a conclusion on this? Is those the options for council?
well, I mean, do we need to decide on option 1 or option 2 now, or we
They're the ones to go to council.
no one has any?
I would propose that we agree with what the Constitution Working Group is recommending. That's what I would propose. We've had it outlined to us by the office what they agreed. We were told it couldn't be a written report. It was a good verbal report. I'm quite happy with supporting that we go along with what the Constitution Working Group is putting forward.
Right, is everybody else happy with that? No, Councillor Kane?
No, there are two options here. There are two recommendations. We can't just agree with the two options which one we're going to go for.
Gary?
Members, the report you've got is the report that went to Constitution Working Group on Thursday. They considered the two options and they chose option 1. I didn't have time to draft the report that's going to council for your agenda, but your agenda for council, you will see that they have chosen option 1 and they have added a couple of recommendations on as I outlined during my presentation. So it's not a decision for you to make, it's about what the committee's views are, and I will add a paragraph to the report summarising that, and then obviously you will have a full debate at council on the 4th of April and you will all have a vote at council on the 4th of April.
Thank you, Councillor Helen Kane.
Yeah, I'm sorry. In that case, yes, I will go with the recommendation of the Constitution Committee.
Is everybody?
My wording was quite carefully, Chairman, that we support the report of the Constitution Working Group.
All right, thank you. So everyone's in agreement that we go for option 1 to council for it to be agreed or not agreed. All right, thank you very much. I think we're actually finished. We seem to be finished in a nice record time. Thank you, everybody, for giving up your time. And we just have to carry on with the scrutiny. Councillor Helen Kane.
Is this your last meeting, Chairman?
Oh, it could well be, yes.
Well, just to say, well, thank you very much for your chairmanship, and I'm sure the members are very pleased to have you scrutinising the communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Kane beat me to it. I don't know whether there is a Councillor Lee fan club, but if there was, I would be the president.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Good night.